So the question is, what about free will? What does that have to do with all of this? If I have so much karma in the past, dormant karmic seeds, unconscious karmic imprints. Okay, there are things I know about, and then there are those things that may not ripen until my next lifetime, if there is such a thing. Yeah. So where is free will in this? And it's a very interesting question because the Buddha himself, he never once said we are helpless to our karma, to the actions that we have taken that have led to imprints. Karma, vipaka. So karma is the action. Vipaka is the tendency, the seed that's planted, and then karma pala, which is the fruition. Yeah, we often don't hear about these in terms of three, but there are these three qualities. And the fruition is that which leads to the next action. It leads to doing it again, whether it's the next day or in the next lifetime. So basically the seed has now sprouted into a fully ripened fruit. So where is free will in this? That's kind of an interesting thing. The Buddha never said we're helpless to these things. And yet, as Padmasambhava said, our view must be as vast as the sky and as fine as a grain of barley flour, if you remember that from last week. Both of those bring us tremendous potential. I think I also mentioned last week that in the Mahayana view, where compassion is seen to be just the pinnacle of transformative practice, that a little bit of really wholesome karma, just a very small amount of compassion that is deeply motivated can change an awful lot of unwholesome karma that we've accumulated. Yeah, or tendencies. That it's very, very powerful. It's not just, oh, it's a good idea and it feels good. But when it's motivated deeply from a deep motivation to alleviate suffering, it actually has quite a power to it. So free will, again, I came up with an equation here. Free will equals choice. And when I mean choice here, I'm talking about choice in responding, whether it's body, in action, speech in things I say, or mind here being not just my thoughts, but mind is really about quality of heart in this teaching. So it's no different. It's no different. Mind, as we think of it in the West, is an extension of the consciousness arising from the heart. So choice, yeah, free will equals choice plus conditions or conditioning factors times awareness plus motivation. That's my formula. You can see what you think. What on earth does this mean? How is free will related here to these qualities, and how does it relate to karma? First of all, the Buddha would agree that free will is, of course, relative. Yeah. And he would also agree, I think, that we always have a choice in how we respond. Even though we have these imprinted reactive habit patterns that are so fast. Yeah, instant karma. Instant karma isn't just something that happens to me, but it's that which arises in my mind so quickly because I've been doing this for either my whole life or for many lifetimes. Yeah, but there is still a choice. There is a retroactive choice as well. There are choices every moment. Plus conditioning factors. So, what are the conditioning factors that determine the choices that I can make, that I feel that I can make? Yeah. If we consider that all is available to us in the space of what we call emptiness or shunyata, or a complete absence of these karmic imprints and of thoughts and concepts and all of these things, the projections, the conditions that come with our own suffering, and on and on. And if all is available to us in the space of emptiness, then I will see that I have different choices, because they'll be imbued with the insight that comes out, the clarity and the insight that comes out of emptiness. Otherwise, very hard to get to. Yeah. So what we're talking about is a continuum here, a gross to a very subtle continuum. And most of us live, from a karmic standpoint, in a very gross level life. Padmasambhava was keen to remind us this is very hard to do, given and this was part of the reading that I'm remembering, that given the ordinary life and what he calls the endowments, I don't know exactly what he means by that, but I think it has to do with all of the things that we have to attend to in addition to our responsibilities, our fiduciary responsibilities, in this life. This is a very hard path to walk for the average person. So those might be conditioning factors. So freedom equals choice plus the conditions that we have that determine perhaps our choices in a given moment, times awareness. What is the degree of awareness that I've cultivated that imbues my understanding of my choices and sees through the conditioning factors to see beyond into new possibilities? This is why it's a multiplication, not an addition. And then the plus, it's almost like we can see it. Free will is N or F equals C plus CD, conditioning, and then in the parentheses times A for awareness plus, in the parentheses, M, motivation. I'm not a mathematical person at all. Those of you who know me, I can't even, I think a couple of you have been in my classes, and when we're trying to divide up in a class of 20 students, how many groups of 3, I sit there like I have no idea how to calculate this. Dana is laughing. Yes. I think you've probably experienced that. Anyway, but this to me makes sense. That choice conditioning factors are multiplied by awareness. It doesn't mean the literal conditioning factors are multiplied, but our options, our awareness multiplies, brings new conditioning factors into this equation. And along with good motivation, with bodhicitta motivation, with the motivation of big love, free will suddenly takes on an entirely new dimension to it. And that is true for the 3 vajras, for body, our actions, the vajra of body, speech, the things that we say, which include, in my opinion, the self-talk, the narratives in the mind, and then the vajra of mind, which is really the vajra of heart. Padmasambhava makes this very clear in his text, that heart is really the transformation point here. I think motivation, both are true. Motivation, first of all, can be part of awareness. And yet awareness itself is also beyond motivation. If we're talking about emptiness, or we're talking about a state of profound open awareness without content, which is how I like to define emptiness or shunyata, motivation has to be part of that in some way. But it's a quality that is simply self-evident and present. It's always there. Motivations can be on different levels. We can be motivated to eat dinner because we're hungry and it's getting late, or motivated to respond to a friend who just got a very difficult diagnosis. There are different levels of that. I think intention, small I, in this equation, which it would be cool. I see this unraveling into a whiteboard at MIT, which is very possible with a lot of other factors that we add here. It's possible that intention could be part of conditioning factors. It could also be very much part of motivation and slightly different than motivation. Yeah, intention is more, I think, and you can push back on this if you like. Intention is more of a cognitive awareness of a rationale for doing something in a way, whereas motivation is a very deep feeling level, as well as perhaps more visceral in a way. Yeah. Tendencies live in motivation, intentions possibly too, but they're sort of lighter fare. Yeah. It's a matter of putting things in the right order. And when I say right order, I mean from subtle to gross, because awareness itself is simply awareness. It has no content necessarily, and yet it can inform um, perceptions. It can inform views. It can inform ideas or things that we do, or creativity. As I mentioned earlier, when more things are present to us, because we're not stuck in narrow channels of how we think or see ourselves, that if we see ourselves through the lens of just profound open awareness, things look different, and that then can lead to different choices. So it's the awareness being choiceless, I think, is just a matter of deep subtlety. It's a matter of degree of consciousness. And this is why meditation practice really seeks for us to abide in that subtle aspect of mind, just that quietness, the quietude, the quiescence. There are other keywords we can use, but in just open clarity, source, and the clarity is pristine, it's bright, it's brilliant. This is what creates luminosity. This is what luminosity means here. So I think it's not that awareness is either choiceless or choiceful, but it is a source by which we can come to know what our choices are, perhaps beyond just the ordinary mind.